The Nonprofit MBA purpose is to provide new business insights and fresh creative ideas for executive directors and their teams that will help them improve their organization. Here is your host, Stephen Halasnik.
Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Stephen Halasnik, and I will be your host for today's Nonprofit MBA Podcast. And I am co-founder of Financing Solutions. And for the last 14 years, we have been the largest provider of lines of credit for small nonprofits in the United States. If you're interested in learning more about a line of credit for your organization, please visit our website at nonprofitmbapodcast.com. And today I'm very excited to be speaking with Jason Clark from Via Studios. It's Via Studios, right? Or
Via Studio.
Via Studios. Studio. I'm sorry. I apologize. So it's Via Studio. And just a little bit about Jason. Jason is the president and CEO of Via Studio, where he leads a team of developers, designers, strategists, and marketers delivering brand strategy, design, development, and marketing services to clients throughout the United States. So, Jason, welcome to today's Nonprofit MBA Podcast.
Nice to meet you. Happy to be here.
Good. So today we're going to be talking about practical ways to modernize your nonprofit's messaging. And so if we were to talk about what old school messaging is, how would you kind of define that?
Oh, goodness. I would say old school messaging, especially for nonprofits, is, what do you have at the moment? What we've seen in working with a lot of nonprofits on their brand and messaging can be a little bit too specific, if you will, and not emotional. Like obviously a nonprofit has a lot of there's an emotional reason for them to exist. They're trying to help their constituency in some way. And it is very easy to start in the details, but forget that bigger mission of emotion and why you exist. So that's one of the parts of our process that we try to help our clients elevate when we're working on their messaging.
Yeah, I like that idea. You're right. I mean, I think I'm an emotional writer. I write a lot, and I think that's my style. And I think it makes things, if you could put an energy, I think emotionalism provides an energy that nonprofits have naturally. Have you been, I'm surprised that when people write their own, I guess a lot of nonprofits are doing it more in-house than they are outside. Is that true?
Yeah. There's a typical lack of resources with nonprofits. And even for larger nonprofits that we've worked with, there's always been a hesitancy to work with agencies because they feel like their dollars should be allocated to whatever their mission is. So when we say, it's X number of dollars to work with us and, expect to pay, a certain amount, there's usually some sticker shock because that's not an expense that either their board would approve, or again, if they're, feeding people or housing people or funding arts or whatever it might be, that is always at the top of their list. That's their mission. There was a really great TED Talk once about marketing for nonprofits, and they feel like that is possibly an expense that is not that is superfluous to their mission, which I would argue it is very much not.
Yeah, that's incredibly short-sighted, I think, to think that, I would think that if the marketing company does a good job, which they're gonna, then they should be making the nonprofit more money than they would if they just did themselves.
Right.
Fair.
Right. It is an investment, and it's usually a necessary investment. And luckily we've got the case studies and the data to back that up now. So, I've been doing this for 25 years. So it's pretty easy for us to tell that story if we can have a conversation with their leadership.
I mean, I'm going to ask a stupid question, but the majority of the work that you're going to be doing is going to be for fundraising. Is that accurate?
Not necessarily. It's part of it. But we have a number of, we've worked with nonprofits where, so we've got a large forest and research arboretum in Kentucky, Bernheim Forest, and the attendance is a goal to their events to get people to go hike through the forest. Performing arts organizations, right? There's attendance. They're usually not selling on a retail level unless it is some kind of fundraiser, but there are lots of nonprofits that do work besides just raise funds to allocate somewhere else.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about, so you go from the old school, which is static, not emotional, to the new school thought about marketing. Where is more, could you shed some more light on what a newer style of marketing might be?
Yeah, that's we have and if I can share slides from a slide deck, I will. I don't know if there's a screen share opportunity here, but I can also share those in show notes if we need to.
Well, we're not going to be moving it
It's
up
audio.
to YouTube.
Got it.
It's audio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So we have so we've got a roadmap essentially for branding and marketing initiatives, and that starts with brand strategy. So usually someone will come to us and if they don't understand brand strategy, it'll be a more tactical thing that they want. Like we want either you to run our marketing campaigns, or we need a new website, or that type of thing. And sometimes it's identity. Sometimes, hey, we need a new logo and a brand system. And what we'll ask at the beginning of that is, what is your brand strategy? So for us, brand strategy is a deep knowledge of your constituency, your audience, your unique value propositions to those audiences. And it uncovers a story essentially that we use for any of the later work. So the brand strategy and core messaging is really the foundational bedrock of any work that we'll do for a nonprofit.
What do you do when a client says to you, and at times you can tell they don't have a brand strategy?
Sure.
What do you do in that situation? Yeah.
We'll walk them through essentially a case study of a previous nonprofit we may have worked for that might align with the work that they've done, and shown them how we've elevated a mission in a way that resonates with an audience, that connects more emotionally to them, and how we got there. That's the most important thing, is how you get there, because, with creative work, it's real easy for people to think that, us creatives go into a corner and scribble on a whiteboard or whatnot and come out with something magical. And it really is a lot less magical and more process driven for us. We've got a 7-step process in our brand strategy that it starts with a deep understanding of that nonprofit and their mission, and then moves at the end of that process into what we call a brand concept, which is what we like to call the vibe. What is the vibe of your brand? And again, we can show every step of that process, and we can show how that helped move things along in a way that created buy-in, right? A lot of nonprofits have boards that everybody on that board might be part of that nonprofit for a different reason. So their motivations might be misaligned. So again, part of that process is to bring everybody along in the same way and get consensus along the way, so that, we don't just, uncover the whiteboard and wow them all, because that's not how creative work actually happens.
Yeah. I know that for me, the best projects I've ever worked on have always been the ones that I really felt made the hugest difference in the organization was been branding projects. The amount of work, and then it's like the cart before the horse. You have to do you really kind of have to understand a little bit more about who you are before you can have a communication strategy. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah. That's for depending on the size of the nonprofit that we work with, there is the first piece of that process is stakeholder meetings. And it's so important. And we'll do that one-on-one with just an individual stakeholder so that so those people have a voice. And you'll learn so much from talking to people all up and down the org chart in a nonprofit. So for example, we did a rebrand once for Actors Theater of Louisville a long time ago. And the most important stakeholder was the people that ran the box office, because they were on the phone with constituents all day, every day, answering questions, right? So the, leadership, the executive officers and whatnot have lofty goals and aspirations, but you can't really get to those until just the constituent level is happy. Let's take care of those people first, and then let's start to ladder up to those loftier goals, right? So it is not. It is intentionally built that way so that people always have a voice, and we can go back to the leadership and say, your perception of the organization is this, but here's what people are saying to us that they might not be saying to you. And that's usually some type of light bulb moment of like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And, because I'm the CEO, like my goals might be intimidating for somebody that's, working at the box office. So
I mean,
it's always enlightening.
how did you, it's unusual to find a marketing company that has done work for for nonprofits as a sector. What do you think the difference is in working with a marketing company that has worked with nonprofits before? How are nonprofits different to you than your commercial clients?
Usually the biggest difference, and this is based on size, but a lot of the times there is a board. So the board is possibly unpaid, or they might even be paying to be on that board. And again, their motivations are they're all different. It could be somebody looking to gain status in the community, and it could be somebody with a deep mission-based need to help this nonprofit, right? So usually big initiatives require board approval, and that's a big step in the process of making sure that they're riding along at the same pace that we are, and we've got buy-in from them. The biggest boards we have worked with or have been probably 30 or 35 people.
That's big.
So it's a lot to get people to get to yes, or at least get to consensus, which makes us have to be very methodical about where we're going, because you
Gotcha.
don't just show creative work and hope that they like it. You have to have a rationale behind every piece and part that you're building.
Maybe I love case studies, so like real life scenarios. Maybe you could pick one of your clients that's one of your smaller nonprofits that you've worked with, and could you tell us? You don't have to tell us the name if you don't want to, but tell us what the assignment originally was, and kind of what happened.
Sure. There was there. Oh, 1 second. So one client that we worked with was the Parks Alliance of Louisville. Okay. So it is a funding arm for parks in Louisville, Kentucky, that raises money for things like putting playgrounds in parks and opening up new parks, right? Like a lot of people think that's taxpayer funded, but it's not. That is, it requires the dedication and work of people who believe in parks to do fundraising and that. So it was originally called the Louisville Parks Foundation, and they wanted to, they had very lofty goals of opening new parks and getting people in the parks. And they had 2 big fundraising events a year that had really great attendance, and they wanted to kind of press down on that momentum in order for their other fundraising goals to be met. It was when we first joined working with them, it was 1 executive director and maybe 1 or 2 employees. So we kind of did a more abbreviated version of our brand strategy process, but the work went from something that looked very administrative, if you will, the creative, like it looked something that might come out of a city government. We changed the name from the Parks Foundation of Louisville to the Louisville Parks Alliance. That word alliance was very important because it made people feel like they were a part of it. Then the creative moved from, and if you check our site, viastudio.com, you can find that case study there. The creative went from, again, a very administrative look to a very vibrant, big, bold look, bold headlines, that just it just helped them skyrocket in terms of fundraising and other ways of achieving their goals. And again, it can be easier and harder, right? It's harder because you've got less budget to work with to do that work, but it's easier because they are like small nonprofits can be so excited at what you can do quickly, especially if they don't have a board, you have to get it through.
Yeah. The do you have a methodology that you guys use? Like, for example, I have assumption that you do because you talked about, what's your brand strategy, and then you have a methodology. So I'm just the reason I'm asking the question is if you want to share with us the methodology process. I'm curious to know what happens after the campaign rolls out. What comes next in the methodology? How do you circle back on it? Which a good methodology would do, regardless of if it's marketing or whatever.
So you're saying after the new brand has been launched, what's next?
Yes. Or
Sure.
it doesn't have to be the brand. It could be really the marketing campaign. So, someone brings you on and says, we want to do this. And then, of course, you circle back and say, okay, tell me about your brand strategy. And then you work on the project. What happens after the project is completed?
Sure. Usually we'll get into kind of an agency services model, where it's, there are a lot of different channels for marketing, right? There's paid advertising, there's social media, there's email newsletters, different types of constituency communication and management. There's events. And so it can be very different depending on who that client is and, how they fundraise and how they interact with the community. So, but the methodology is pretty much the same. You need to understand what your goals are. There is, we've got strategy briefs and project briefs that start every project. So we have to know, what is the objective or goal? And that has to be a measurable goal, right? So if we want to increase donations this year by 10%, okay, what does that look like? If we want to increase attendance at, a gala or a benchmark event, that's, again, all those things are very important to know. And then from there, the strategy and the creative team will, sometimes the platforms are dictated to us, right? Like we advertise on Facebook and Instagram. But most of the time we get a little bit of time to do some research and recommendations about what platforms and what processes might help more.
Any idea if you're in charge of the whole campaign, I don't know, does that happen often? Like, in other words, they'll say, where should we advertise this? So you're doing the messaging, you're doing they ask you where you should be, where they should be at, where you should be advertising. You're running the whole. Is that less common?
It depends on the size of the organization.
Yeah.
A bigger nonprofit, we will manage all of it. And a smaller nonprofit, we might just be funneling them suggestions to their marketing person or their marketing team, as you know, and the cadence for a smaller nonprofit might be a quarterly check-in. It's like, okay, here's all the ways that you're marketing. We're going to take a look at your data and analytics on the work that you're doing and recommend changes on how to do that, right? So maybe your email campaigns are starting to see declines in open rates or conversion rates. So, what kind of messaging have you been using? And a lot of times it's such low-hanging fruit that we can give them 10 recommendations a quarter and it absolutely turns around their initiatives. Like you can see a lot of nonprofits for an email campaign might use the exact subject line every time they send out an email. It's like, nope, you've got to, you have to try to find a way to connect every time you write a subject line in an email. So try these methods. The AI tools are helpful for that. Like, here's some prompts that you can use in ChatGPT in order to,
it's okay. Keep talking. Yeah.
Right. In order to refresh your your marketing there, right? And obviously we don't like completely using AI tools. It's more of a starting point than an end point.
Yeah. I'm sorry for the hesitation there. We lost a video, but the audio's fine. In fact, I think, Jason, I'm just going to shut off the video. Oh, there you are. Anyway, I'm just going to shut off video anyway because I know I've been having some problems with my internet. So from your experience of doing this now, when you're working with nonprofits, and let's talk about the smaller nonprofits. What are some of the things that you just see on a consistent basis that is just, always caught your attention, that are just, things that people are doing wrong?
Sure. Yeah. The biggest thing, and this goes for clients that aren't nonprofit, is that when it's really hard to read the label from inside the jar. I love that metaphor, right?
Yeah.
You are in an organization, you are inside the jar, and you are trying to communicate so many things that are so important to you, but you forget that what's important to you might not be important to what's on the other side, right? So that is where an agency or some type of consultant can come in and say, you're trying to communicate this way because it's so important to you, but I hate to tell you, but that's less important to your constituency. So here's a way to tune that message to help get them to pay attention or care about the things that you care about.
What else?
Donations. That is, there's a lot of low hanging fruit there, right? Like every nonprofit, most nonprofits have a donate button on their website, and that's always the biggest call to action. Just a real simple piece that you can do there is help them understand what a donation goes to, right? Like if you hit the donate button and it goes to a PayPal form, tell them, right? Like $50 will help, put a kid into a technology class to help them learn computer skills, or, $150 can help feed a family for a month. It's communicating benefits instead of just a plain ask for money, because everybody wants your money. So again, help me help you understand why it's important for you to care or to donate.
Do you have an idea of, so you come up with KPIs, key performance indicators, or measurements of what's going to make a successful campaign?
Yep.
Any idea about the percentage of times when you are working on that campaign where it's successful based on the KPIs?
Yeah, some bits are easier to measure than others. For events, you'll know immediately if you get more attendance or not. So you'll know immediately if that new campaign or that message works. Some things take more time. So we advertise on public radio. We've been a partner with Louisville Public Media for 10 years at this point. We underwrite them, and we also help them work on their brand and their marketing. And one of the guys that works there, he worked there for a long time, good friend of mine. He said, Jason, if you can't dedicate to a campaign in public radio for the next 2 years, you shouldn't buy into it, because you're not going to see any movement for a long time. People have to get used to hearing your message, and they're going to have to hear it, 7 to 20 times before they understand that and connect the dots between you and your company. And that's what a lot of paid advertising is, right? You're trying to get in front of an audience and trying to, kind of seep into their consciousness, and it's not a one-off. So that is something that you can see really great positive benefits from, but you also have to be patient there. And that can be hard for nonprofits who are looking to, for funding month to month even.
Yeah, that's hard. I would admit that's hard, because the advertising that we do is so in essence point of purchase, but it's so either it works or it doesn't work. So we're not, it's because
Right.
with Facebook and with SEO or SEM, it's an instant result.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, I think the other type of result over a long period of time is almost more like a branding project than it was a fundraising project.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with the tactical stuff, I think you should always be experimenting. And if you don't have a person on the inside at your nonprofit that is built that way, it really is time to call in an agency or a consultant to give me 10 ideas again, how to change this up so that we can really tell what works and what doesn't. Because once you just fall into the same rhythms and the same tactics and the same messages, it can be harder to change and want to change.
Yeah, if someone's listening now, and they're probably listening because they think that they have, a a message issue with their organization.
Right.
If you were to suggest how to do like a marketing messaging audit,
Right.
what would you suggest to our listeners?
So there's 3 pieces of our brand strategy process that I would pull out and show them. One is the stakeholder interviews. Interview everyone. Interview the people that work there. Interview constituents and donors. Interview the people that your nonprofit is trying to benefit. Aggregate those, and you can pull out themes that you may not have, that might not come from your mind, right? What we do with those themes is turn it into something that we call brand pillars. And that is 3 or 4 essentially broader concepts, right, of what that brand represents. And so all of these words and concepts that come out of those stakeholder meetings can usually fall into a few categories, right? So bundle those up into categories. We call those brand pillars. And you'll have that turns into a matrix of words that you can use on a regular basis to help express your mission. Attach those to your different types of target audiences. And just from there, you've got a really strong foundation of how to mix up your message.
Yeah, I mean, one of the suggestions I would make to anybody who's looking into messaging or marketing a little bit more is there's one of the best books I've ever used, and I know the author, and I actually used him as a consultant at one point. His name is Robert Bloom, and Robert Bloom is a little bit famous because he created the largest advertising agency in the world, Publicis. And I met him when he was in his 80s, and he was kind of just looking to stay busy. He wrote a book called The Inside Advantage. I think it's called The Insider Advantage. And one of the companies I had, me and my team, we all read it. It's a very short book, but it really helped us build our branding strategy. And it was such good work, and we ended up bringing him on. It was such incredible pay. I think I paid him like $1,000.
Amazing.
He just wanted to stay busy, and like we were fumbling around a little bit, and like within 3 minutes, he gave us, our tagline.
Yeah.
It was just like incredible, and but I really like that book for a starter, and then and then I think looking at I think doing that branding work then helps your marketing agency, even if it's not finished, because then someone like Jason and his company can come in and said, oh, okay, well, you're 80% there. And I think that, maybe you should consider that this other part right here, and then you can build the marketing strategy behind that. Do you think that's a good advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I think a lot of people with the amount of experience that I've got really just loves to have these kind of conversations, right? So, I talk to a lot of nonprofits that can't afford us, or, to be honest, right? Like, we have to get paid too. And I'm happy to sit with them, for an hour or two, or just consult with them a little bit to help do what you're saying, right? Like, how can I give you 3 to 5 things to work on that would absolutely change or improve your messaging? And that's really rewarding just internally as somebody that, is invested in the world.
Yeah, I think the title of the book, and I think it says a lot. A lot of times people think of branding as an outward expression. It's a marketing thing, but the thing that Robert Bloom really caught my attention with in the book was how much this transforms your organization from the inside out. How you become, by doing this work, you really understand your organization so much better. Your employees understand your organization so much better. Your stakeholders understand your organization so much better. And it drives everything so it's in alignment, which is really important when you're talking about marketing and what Jason's company does. If Jason, do you notice the difference when someone has done that type of work and really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. It is very clear, right? Are you sending the right message to the right person at the right time consistently? And if somebody can do that, I can tell that they've either been through a really strong branding process, or there's somebody on the inside that understands that deeply and knows how to work it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the difference between, I'm sure Jason, you see it with your clients, and you'll be like, oh, this person really has this company really has, or this nonprofit really has their act together. They know it, right? They've put the work in, they know it. And then you have another one where it's kind of, they're all over the place. And I think that, the difference that I see, like one of the things that I've always said, one of the things for small nonprofits is the executive director has to really work hard on getting the organization to a point where the executive director can work on the organization and not work in it. And, that's based on both revenue and also delegation skills and staff. So it's, there's like a lesson there. I think the other lesson is the better, smaller nonprofits really have their, they really understand themselves. They communicate it well. They have good marketing campaigns. It's professionally done. And I think, Jason, you're right. It takes someone from the outside who's been doing this for decades to really, make it simple instead of you learning it yourself.
There's so much. I would say 80% of the clients that we sign, there's so much low-hanging fruit that's like, okay, here's some simple things that you can start doing immediately that will move the needle. And that might even just be time-saving pieces, right? Something that takes somebody 10 hours to do. If I can help them do it in 2 hours, then they've just saved a whole day's worth of work a week to focus on something else. So that's those efficiencies. Like sometimes you're just so used to doing something a certain way that you don't even know that there's like more efficient ways have been developed.
I want to ask you one last question. It's a little bit off the subject matter. I usually ask it early on, but in this case, I'm going to ask it now. With this current administration, with the government, for 2025, how has it affected your business?
There's a lot of fear. Unfortunately, well, for better or for worse, we have a lot of, we do accessibility work for universities, and that like those types of programs are, they don't know what kind of footing they're on from month to month as far as their funding. So there has been, we have had we have grown this year, which is great. But some of that is even from, what a nonprofit may have been able to benefit from government funding. Now they have to find it from, the private world. So we have to do more campaign work in terms of fundraising and whatnot. So it's shaky ground at best, especially for nonprofits. And I hate to see it because most of the people that I know that live in that world live in it because they are passionate about whatever their nonprofit serves. And it's I just hate to see it. It's a real downer.
Yeah. I hear it every day. So cool. Well, listen, that's kind of all the time we had. I thank you for making this, explaining this to us. I think it was really helpful. And I'd like to thank so very much Jason Clark from VIA Studio for coming on today's podcast. And if you like today's podcast, please feel free to share it with a friend and also subscribe on your favorite podcasting apps. We have great guests like Jason, and they're just really so helpful for thought starters. And if you like today's podcast or any other ones, please give us a 5-star review. It helps us get the word out. And if you're looking for a line of credit for your nonprofit, please feel free to visit our website at nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Jason, if anyone wants to get in hold of you or learn more, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. You can go to our website. It's just viastudio.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn at the letter C, Jason Clark. Pretty easy to find there. So,
yep. And VIA is spelled VIA, just VIA Studio. So, great. Well, Jason, thanks for your time today. And just to our listeners, everybody have a fantastic day.
Cheers. Thank you, sir.